Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Dr. Zachary is a former professional golfer and sports chiropractor that failed to make the PGA Tour, but learned all about repetitive grip injuries and conditions through the experience. From that experience, he developed a market-changing hand exercise product, the Handmaster Plus, over 1 million units sold, that is used by people around the world to recover from or train them for repetitive grip activities in sports, music, the workplace, gaming, computers, smartphones, hobbies, etc. Dr. Zachary is also the author of Great Hands, Great Life, a book that explains why imbalanced hand and grip muscles lead to finger, thumb, hand, wrist, carpal tunnel, forearm, and elbow problems, as well as how to exercise the hands properly. Who knew the hands were this important? So I'm really excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Dr. Zachary.
Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Erin. I'm looking forward to this. And it's a wordy introduction. I know that, but it's a diverse area that I think a lot of people either pass by or at least take for granted.
Yeah. So before we dive into really like grip strength and all of that, like what inspired you to develop this product and how does it address repetitive grip injuries?
Yeah, Erin, I think the big thing is I grew up a sports junkie. I think the last thing whenever I reflect on this, the last thing I ever thought I'd be doing was doing hand and grip muscle training and advice and stuff like that. But I grew up a sports junkie. Mostly as a Canadian, I grew up playing hockey first. That was my first love. Eventually, there was basketball as well. But the big difference with me and my direction and my path happened when I really got into golf. And golf demanded, as you got better and better and started to compete to little higher levels, really started to demand a detailed attention on things like grip and alignment and so much of the mental side of things. I think that got me into a real detail oriented person. And I always wondered how the body worked. I was interested in how the golf swing worked. And then all of a sudden I just got really into the body. I had some problems myself personally, just spinal problems. And it got me interested in what I eventually ended up doing for a career. So to be hooked on golf that much almost was a natural step to go like, how does this body work? And it's just, as you know, it's just this endless study where you start to learn different approaches, different ideas, what the body is, what it does. And it just takes you on this endless path and it reminded me a lot of golf, but I love both. And both my passions took me to see that grip is actually done poorly. Grip training is either ignored or it's misunderstood. And I saw it when I started working in my practice with professional golfers, amateur golfers, and hockey players, tennis, even musicians, as I started to do work with grip injuries. And I saw that we are way off base on how we train them and how we understand the area.
So how do we train for grip strength?
Yeah, it's the standard question we start with. And anybody that's out there that really took up sports. Most sports are grip sports. Let's say leave alone soccer or something like that. But most sports are going to be grip sports, and most people are eventually going to look at grip strength. So when I was a kid, likely for yourself or any of the athletes out there, what we're generally told is, here, take this coiled gripper or take this, racquetball or spring-loaded gripper. And just grip, and squeeze, and that's going to do the trick, and you're going to be strong. And it's not really true. So to go into now we go into healthcare and dissecting actual human beings and seeing where these muscles all go and how they work, you realize that it's not just muscles that close the hand. So when we talk to people, to simplify it as much as possible, because it is a relatively complicated area, and I think that scares people. But basically, you have 9 muscles that close the hand, and those muscles are located on the front of your hand, wrist, forearm, and all the way to the elbow. Now, opposingly, and what we don't talk about very much, is that we also have 9 muscles that open and spread the hand. And those muscles are absolutely vital in grip. They are actually stabilizer muscles of your grip. And those are on the back of the hand, wrist, forearm, carpal tunnel, all the way to the elbow. So we have this play in just the muscles that control the hand. But the third area we have is we also have 9 muscles that are located throughout your forearm. And those muscles will actually position the hand in whatever you do in grip. If I'm playing guitar, I'm at the computer, I'm playing tennis, that wrist position is always going to be a little bit different. So we have to train all of those 27 muscles. And historically, yes, that's what we've done. We see the hand and we say, well, that's all there is. Just from the wrist up is what my hand muscles are. And nothing could be further from the truth. When we take those muscles and just close them and repetitively squeeze them, we're actually creating shortened finger flexor muscles and often shortened wrist muscles, etc., with no opposition from the hand opening muscles. And also, the hand opening muscles support the grip. So when they become weak, we run into all kinds of problems. And that's where I started, and just started to see, problems at the fingers, problems at the thumb, the wrist, the carpal tunnel, the forearm, the elbow. And you start to realize, wait a minute, we just don't understand this area. And it's an important area for many reasons we'll talk about today.
Yeah. So dive into that. Why, what are the important reasons, and maybe what have we been doing wrong all this time?
Yeah. Well, the important reasons are, first of all, just like we talked about, and now we know the lay of the land a little bit. And what I will say to all your audience is, just remember: 9 muscles close the hand, 9 muscles open and spread the hand, 9 muscles control the position of the wrist whenever we grip, whatever our particular grip activity is. So we need to look at strengthening all of those muscles. Now, because we're not Dr. Erin, the thing that we do is, if we're just not doing anything, we're just doing our regular day job. I might be a dental hygienist, for example. I'm gripping a small tool, palm down all day without much break. Nobody's educated me really to offset that or how to train properly. Well, I'm going to see that now those muscles attach. Like we said, it's a long explanation, but those muscles attach equally on the front and the back of the fingers, the thumb, the hand, the wrist, the carpal tunnel, the forearm, and the elbow. So when we know that, what conditions or what problems are happening? Problems at all of those areas. Now, it could be just a life of repetitive gripping is breaking down the flexor sides of the joints. So we see arthritic changes that we would never think of. We say, well, I've all of a sudden developed arthritis. I wonder how that happened. Well, there's a mechanical explanation why it did happen. But that's just arthritis. We might have finger muscle imbalance, thumb muscle imbalance, a lot of breakdown of the carpal tunnel, and that's an interesting area to talk about on its own. But then we also see wrist problems, and in people that repetitively grip a lot, we see elbow problems as well. So one misunderstanding leads to an array of problems. And the last thing I'll add to that, Dr. Erin, this is something I wasn't looking at to start with, but we started to see all these conditions starting to clear and get stable. We see performance go up, but we're also seeing people say, I'm sleeping better. I'm just feeling better in general. And for the life of me, I almost passed that off, because my first instinct is, well, they're not having a problem at A, B, C, D, E, whatever area they were having problems with. But we started to see it more often. And then I realized, we are bringing blood flow and lymph drainage all the way to the periphery of the body. And that's going to stimulate blood flow. We did a study. There was a study done one year. It was in, I think, 2019, using our product, because we develop a product, as we can speak about if you want, that trains the muscles through those full range of motion, because I needed to get my athletes doing these types of things that we were talking about. When we had them train their hands through full natural ranges of motion using all those 27 muscles, we did there was a thermography images done on that, and it would show that when we did our exercise, the blood flow was markedly different than when you just did a repetitive grip or obviously nothing at all. So those are the things that we're seeing is as we work through full ranges of motion, the way the body's naturally designed, and we kind of respect that design, we see increases in blood flow. So we know there's increases in lymph drainage. And so that's the final thing I would say. If by doing that wrong, which was the original question, if I'm just taking something and gripping it or doing nothing or squeezing it or doing nothing at all, we're missing out on all that peripheral blood flow to all parts of the upper extremities. And we're missing out, therefore, on increasing the circulation in our body, lymph drainage being a really important concept, I think, nowadays when we worry about toxins in foods, air, etc. But a plethora of things happen when we start to take those 27 grip muscles through their full natural ranges of motion. A lot of joints, structures become stable, and we start to have magnificent blood flow and lymph drainage. So lots happens because we've done grip wrong, and that's why we're on programs like yourself to get people to say, hey, by doing this, not only is our handshake stronger, things that are quite minimal, but maybe your golf game's better, maybe your pickleball's better, you're quicker, more range of motion, but you prevent injury and you start to bring blood flow throughout your whole body, stimulate lymph drainage. And we also see that because the lymph ducts are up near the shoulders, we know that we're increasing lymph duct efficiency as well. So much has come out of it. Most of it I didn't expect, but the basics I did expect. And it was all because, we're respecting nature and just following nature's kind of guide. Here's how I'm built. Exercise me this way and we'll probably do fine.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Handmaster Plus. What is this device and how is it different from, the little things that you can just get anywhere that I'm used to knowing for grip strength?
Yeah, and I think I'll probably change your mind about that, Erin, as we talk. But it is, it's the same advice I got. Like I'm never really disrespectful about anybody's path. I speak to people all the time about this, and we're in 2024 right now.
Right.
And unless they've come in contact with our groups, you're probably not going to be exercising properly. So, yes, so we designed a little bit of background quickly on Handmaster Plus. I did take time off my practice, as you said in your introduction. And I felt like at the time I was young enough, I wanted to make a run and see if I could make it on the PGA Tour. I was winning a lot of tournaments locally, and I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I better do it. And spent 3 years traveling with professional golfers. I'd already been in practice for several years. So I knew about this imbalance of hand muscles. But when people would inevitably approach me and knew my background, if they were having like wrist problems or elbow problems, which is the most common things we saw on tour, I would show them multiple exercises, Erin, and they would never have time to do them. They would never have time to remember them. In my office, I would give them a sheet, and I had a little bit more control of the environment. But to explain these things to professional golfers who are traveling and have other areas to exercise was futile. So it's just one of those stories where 3:00 in the morning, one morning I woke up and said, if I take like a central flexible ball and put a cord through the middle of it, I could probably accomplish all of these things I'm talking about in one exercise. So that's what years and years and a lot of trial and error later led to. And for the viewers that you have, I'll show you the Handmaster. It's just a simple thing. If you can see.
Oh, cool.
That.
Okay.
It's now, it went through many iterations, but now it's a ball with a cord through the middle. And all you do, I'll show you really quickly. So if I was to take my hand, Erin, and for the listeners in audio, if I was going to take my hand and just open it wide as I could and close it as closed as I could, okay, though you would be stimulating the 9 muscles that open the hand and the 9 muscles that close the hand. So what I would tell you is that if you do squeeze that hand, open and spread it, and left it open and spread, and then you did a figure 8 at your wrist, you would also now be training all of the muscles, the 9 muscles of your forearm, through their full and natural ranges of motion. So all as we did when we designed Handmaster Plus is I take that same motion. I'm going to put these cords on my thumb and my fingers very simply like so. And then I'm going to just do what I just did. So I'm going to close against the ball, and that's the resistance of the ball. I'm going to open and spread against the resistance of the cord, and that will train the 9 muscles that open and spread the hand. And then with my hand open, I'm going to just do a figure 8 at the wrist. So now when I'm training somebody, I get them to squeeze the ball, open and spread against the cord, do a figure 8 at the wrist, and I'm training all those 27 muscles through their full natural range of motion. So they would do that for however length of time would be a comfortable fatigue, and usually, Erin, that's about a minute or 2 at max.
Oh, so you don't need
And
that
now
much.
no, and that's the other thing is when I used to show the athletes, they were in the office, I would show the athletes, but I'd have an array of items laying around, including elastic bands that I couldn't get them to fully open their hands. So I couldn't get them to go through full range of motion. When I developed this simple device, I could get them to do everything in one exercise. They're done in, if they're going to do both hands, they might be done in 2 or 3 minutes. And when this is your livelihood, these professional golfers, many of them had injuries where they couldn't practice and they could barely play.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden we could show them something, a real easy item that's portable, and they could carry it all over the place when they traveled. And we basically took that concept and saw, boy, we've got these same grip problems in tennis, gymnastics, golf,
Mm-hmm.
motorbike riding, pickleball, then music and workplace, etc., etc. So that's how this little item kind of grew a life of its own. But it all goes back. It's impressive that we've now started to move this product around the world. It's pretty easy once we explain it to people.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing is we're getting people to exercise their hands. And I sleep comfortably at night knowing that we are getting people to move their hands properly to help them with their pursuit, whatever that is, prevent injuries. And now, again, as that progressed, we know we're helping with blood flow and lymph drainage. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just expanded kind of on its own, but based on those simple 9 muscles close the hand, 9 muscles open the hand, 9 muscles control the position of the wrist. Let's train them all. Now we can do it easily in a couple minutes.
Awesome. So even if you're not, say, an athlete, you don't play golf, you don't really, I mean, we all use our hands. It would still be something that anyone could really benefit from, just from, just the mere like impact on the lymphatic system and the blood flow and all of that, correct?
Absolutely. Um, I would go on to say, I mean, there's many things, of course, that we haven't talked about that just in everyday life. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I've seen over the years, Erin, is that when we look at our upper extremity, and again, we do, this is what I've
Mm-hmm.
done for 15 plus years is grip. So I look at it and I see everything being gripped. Like when you look at even shoulders and elbows and arms, they're all built to grip. There's not a lot we're doing with our upper extremities where the end goal isn't to grip something and do something.
Right.
So I think we've belittled grip to such an extent that we forget we have a shoulder problem. We say, well, let's look at that shoulder and let's see what's happened at that shoulder. Well, what do you use that shoulder for? Or especially the elbow. The elbow's even better. If I look when people look at when I still work with we work with athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches for everything, sports, injuries, a lot of different areas. And when they look at the elbow, they're looking really just like what's going on at that elbow. They're not really looking to see like what is that elbow? How is that elbow involved in grip in a regular day? Because that's what an elbow is. It's a grip. The base of a grip. So when they start looking at, for example, maybe a hockey athletic trainer starts to look and say, "Boy, we're not." The hockey stick's held in a certain plane and it moves through a certain range of motion, but it's not a full range of motion. So just like posture, Erin, or stuff that you would see every day, if I'm doing things in a small range of motion, day in, day out, over time, my body's going to build into that small range of motion, and I'm going to be open to repetitive injuries like that we see all over the place. So we're always wanting somebody to take their body, look at the area that look at your whole body and make it thrive. If my body can go through this range of motion, do that on a regular basis. Don't let yourself adapt into your daily habits, because that's when we see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
repetitive problems. Um, so these are the types of things that we're working with all the time. And we're just saying, if it could be somebody that works in their house all day, it could be somebody in the garden all day. Same things
Yeah.
apply. You are using your hands. You don't have to be an athlete to benefit from actually looking at your hands and saying, wow, how are these involved in my life and my health? And especially once you start training full range of motion every day. And again, you can, if you're watching TV or you can be doing anything. You can be watching a podcast and just get one of these items and do it. And you'll feel it right away. When you train 27 muscles, first of all, you'll be pooped the first 6 weeks that you try this all the time. It actually does increase your, blood flow and the heartbeat, and it's quite a venture. Eventually, you become better at it, and then you just simply get the wellness benefits of blood flow and lymph drainage. But also now, say you're a gardener, you're a painter, whatever you like to do, you're using your hands,
Yeah.
and that's going to become a problem over time, because we see so many arthritic changes in, as there's baby boomers and everybody becomes older. We have a way to generally keep that whole area healthy. And that's what I say. Understand your area. This is an easy application to make your entire body thrive. Use it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the difference between, I'm saying grip is hugely important, and society has led us to believe that, whatever, if you want to train grip,
Right.
go for it. But there's a big difference between what I think reality is and how we're using our hands.
Yeah, for sure. Can you explain why women are more prone to hand, wrist, and carpal tunnel injuries than men?
Yeah, it's a stark difference, actually. I'll speak to carpal tunnel. We usually talk about carpal
Yeah.
tunnel directly, but we can speak to the whole, because there's a whole kinetic chain of grip that, generally speaking, males are just generally stronger. That's the first thing that we start at. So whatever activity we take on, uh, again, I come from a golf background. I don't always like to use golf. You could use almost any example. It takes a lot to control a golf club. For, let's say, a female that begins playing golf, it's a bit of a thing. It's a bit
Mm-hmm.
of a weight, and you get the golf club moving into certain positions. It's hard to control that golf club without the strength, without higher strength. The higher your strength, the easier the game becomes. It's still a tough game. But go back to carpal tunnel, because this is where we see it. There's so many studies, and your listeners can go out and look at the studies. And it's about, for carpal tunnel syndrome, females are more apt, about 3-to-1 ratio, more apt to develop carpal tunnel syndrome. Somebody might say, well, why in the world is that? I'd say there's three main reasons. The first reason is what we talked about. Females in generally are going to be not as strong as males. So any activity they're doing, we're all mostly involved in the same activities nowadays, but it's going to take a lot of strength. They're going to have to work harder. Um, the dynamics that are involved in gripping those long finger flexor muscles, there's 8 tendons that are going to go right through that carpal tunnel, and there's also a thumb flexor tendon that goes through there. So there's 9 tendons that are going to go through there. And if they have to work a lot harder, um, you're going to see there's more of a chance for an inflammation, for something to
Mm.
happen, those tendons to have some kind of a rub within the tunnel. We get inflammation, we have problems. So that's the first reason. Second reason is the carpal tunnels on females, when they do the structural studies, are just physically smaller. So there's less room. There's less room for air, so to speak. So when we look at the structure of a male carpal tunnel, it's a little bit wider and a little bit bigger for those tendons to go through. Okay, so that's the second reason, is just strictly, both those first two are strictly physical. The third reason that I think lends into it is you're just going to see a lot of carpal tunnel syndrome in pregnant women. So we're looking at, and you might think, well, how does that affect that ratio that greatly? And I think you see it as a real common thing. Now, I know your background, Erin. You're going to know a lot more about the hormonal changes with a pregnant woman than I am, even though it interests me like crazy through this. And you're going to get a lot less peripheral blood flow again. You're going to get that lot less peripheral blood flow because there's something a little more important going on in the abdomen with pregnant women. So the body's pretty wise there. But yet, the woman is probably doing stuff to arrange the room and get stuff ready for this baby to come in their family. And they're still doing things to, if they have other children, they're doing things to, work around the house, and everything is involving gripping, and a lot of times gripping in a wrist flexed position, which is even harder in the carpal tunnel. That's a little bit of a longer story. But also when the baby does come, now all of a sudden there's going to be a baby to hold, a head to be cupped, and wrist flexion with finger flexion puts a lot of stress on the carpal tunnel ligament at the top, and that's where you see a lot of inflammation. So on the women that are pregnant themselves, you'll see a higher rate of carpal tunnel than any population. That's because of the hormonal changes, but also the changes that have to happen as they're doing a lot of finger flexion and wrist flexion once the baby comes. So the Quervain syndrome, it's a base of the thumb, is a similar problem. We have to cup the head, and I'm using the thumb tendons all the time in that small range of motion. They can easily become overused, and that synovium can inflame. So we talk to, in our, the people that we affect, we talk to somebody if a woman is pregnant, we talk a lot, start training those muscles through full ranges of motion, preparing for the physical challenges of raising a baby and all that comes along with that. And just getting the strength and the blood flow so that you're ready for it. Because most people, physically, the women as they have their child, they're not really told physically, prepare yourself physically for what your demands are going to be. That would be something you would see a lot as well, just for your whole body. But for the grip in particular that we know a lot about, it's a nightmare, and it's it's a nightmare of grip and wrist flexion and finger flexion, and we want to have women and their families prepare for that by understanding this area. So it's a long explanation, but a lot feeds into that 3-to-1 ratio, and we're trying to really do things to say the female population is like, it's really important. You are at more risk for carpal tunnel syndrome. Let's be aware of it. Let's be smart, study the area, and start to train it properly. And again, we provide something that's so simple that it's not burdensome to train those 27 muscles and establish stability and establish blood flow.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere, sitting there, keep it in your car at school pickup, right?
Anywhere. Absolutely anywhere. And then people are going to ask you about it, and pretty soon you're going to start to be, I will guarantee, as your audience, as you start to do this, you will become a grip expert, and you'll actually know more than
I need it. My grip strength is awful.
Yeah.
And I lift weights.
It'll change in about 4 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, I lift weights, and I can't lift as heavy as I want to because my hands can't keep up with the amount of weight.
It's something, because Dr. Erin is something we hear about all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, just in the last week, we have one of, and I'm in our area, we have a pretty major weightlifting gym. So we work with a lot of people, and a person just came up and they had elbow problems, and they said you can't lift anymore. So we start to train that. And again, it's a whole kinetic chain. If you're lifting weights, I will tell you what's happened over time. You'll have the flexion side. So your finger flexors would have been getting stronger, but shorter. So does that make sense? So for a while, you'd say, wow, my grip strength is really getting up there. And I would say it's provable. Your grip strength does rise when you're doing something where you're working with the flexion, just like the old spring-loaded or coiled grip trainers. Your grip strength does go up, but the mechanics, because you're not keeping them in balance and you're not training the 9 muscles that open the hand, are stabilizer muscles. they are contracting just as much when you lift a weight as
Yeah.
the flexor muscles. In fact, probably more because they're smaller muscles. But if you don't do anything to train them through their full range of motion, over time, they become static. So that's where you see so much tennis elbow and forearm extensor tendonitis, is that those, as I'm gripping, but you never take it through your full range of motion, those muscles contract statically through your whole fitness career, Dr. Erin. So they're eventually going to become static, and a static muscle is not a strong muscle. That's why we want our athletes, and especially our weightlifters and our fitness people, to train through that full range of motion. You do that figure 8 exercise, you'll start to see a whole different strength profile of those entire 27 muscles that are involved in that kinetic chain of grip. So absolutely, everybody that's in fitness, I've gotten to you too late, but it's better late than never.
Yeah.
We should have been training. I don't know why, but this information has just went to the wayside. Nobody's really discovered it. We've been on it. We've been on it for 15 years, and trying to holler to the masses. Let's wake up about this area, because it's vital. And especially, I worked with professional golfers, but they're in the gym all the time nowadays. What is asked of professional athletes, hockey players, golfers, baseball, football, pick any sport, pickleball. What it takes to rise to the top, those little degrees of fitness are all going to help.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I'll be getting one. We can get one on your website at DocZach.com, correct?
Yeah, DocZach.com will lead you to Handmaster, and you can purchase it on there. You can look around. There's a bunch of different places that sell, but yeah, that's the best place to go.
Awesome. Well, we could probably jam on this for a little bit longer, but we'll wrap it up. I want to ask you one last question I ask all my podcast guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you can share with the audience?
Okay, well, first of all, that's such a good question. I've been around healthcare and performance all my life, so I love a question like this. What I would say, Erin, is that never forget that you are the healer. Like, your body is the one that's the healer. Never forget that, because it can get you curious about. It's the same way I came to all these conclusions about exercise. You start to study and you start to look at how this magical body is laid out, and you're saying, like, well, look at all those muscles that open the hand. Look at where they go. Wow, they're contracting, and you start to study how it works. So what I would say is that always remember that you're the healer. The answers are inside you, and take the time to understand your body. Go to see naturopaths. Go to see the people that can give you advice about that. Like, we've studied it. A lot of stuff, Erin, seems obvious to us, but if I go to an electrician, they say, well, isn't this obvious? And I'm going, I have no idea what you're talking about. So that's one of the things is I always say, get expert people, especially their natural healthcare people that look and really study the way that body works and can advise you of all the things that are completely available in nature to help you. My exercise that I talk about, all we're doing is giving credit to the body and then just following its lead. So I would say that, just remember that you're the healer. You have intelligence inside you, and just don't sell yourself short, and trust the experts that can advise you on how to best use that intelligence that's inside you.
That's a great tip. We haven't had that shared before, so I appreciate that a lot. We will make sure that we link all of Dr. Terry's information, the website, his book, Great Hands, Great Life, that's available on Amazon, and how you can contact him in the show notes. So this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, Erin, I'm glad we finally got together. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. So,
yeah, it's been a struggle.
I appreciate it. I love what you do, and keep it up. And I really enjoyed being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so, please be sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us weekly as we inspire you to be your best version. For more, follow me on Instagram at dr.erinellis. Until next week, you got this.